is making decisions. Secondly, it has a part to play as a leader in terms of even things like being at the forefront of electric vehicles. Now, that's easy to say, but not necessarily easy to do. One of the things the council needs to look at is the whole life cycle, if you like, of it as well. So it's all good and well to say we'll drive an electric car, but if the power has been generated down at your lawn and it's burning brown coal, then that's not necessarily contributing to a lot in terms of saving the environment. If the council can have vehicles then that are parked at a depot, for instance, and there's solar panels on the roof of those depots, and that solar electricity that's being generated can go into the vehicles, then that's awesome. That's basically completely renewable. But if that solar power has been generated in the daytime and the vehicles are being parked there in the night time, maybe that's not something that can happen right away. But we are probably not far away from battery technology coming on boards to the extent that then a depot can have the solar panels, that power goes into the batteries, the vehicles come in at night time, these are the trucks that don't get driven home, and then those vehicles can be charged overnight, ready for them to get out of the depot in the morning. So these are the things that council need to be considering. Now, they're not necessarily things that can be done tomorrow because it all depends on the technology. So I think there are a range of things that council can do. I think the other area that council can make a really big impact in is things like the legislative framework that it has control over. So in Surf Coast Shire, for instance, there are no plastic bags whatsoever from any retailer. Now, we know that the supermarkets have kind of gone to a system of no plastic bags, even though you can buy one for 15 cents. But perhaps one of the things we could look at.
Sorry.
Sorry, there.
Sorry, that was time. Did you hear Mick?
No, I didn't hear it, Dianne.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. So we're up to 5 minutes, are we, Dianne?
Yeah, we are. Sorry, my bike bell isn't working. I'll do
I can probably do it if you like. So that I think I'll have a go at it.
Okay.
Thank you, Simon. We're going to have to.
Sorry, Simon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. One thing I didn't ask that I should have asked at the outset is, and I've started the recording, but I wanted to get people's permission before I continued the recording. You, Simon, and Catherine and Victor, are you okay for us to record this event?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. And Simon, sorry,
Yes,
thank you. All right, wonderful. So next person up is Catherine Diggins. So over to you, Catherine, for the 3 questions.
Okay, so I'll do my best here. Now, I'd like to say at the very outset that, like Simon, I'm open to say that I've got a lot to learn. A little bit of, by way of introduction with me, I don't know if anybody here heard about the environmental campaign 2 years ago, Save Dorothy Labour Reserve. I heard about a council proposal back in the middle of 2018, which when I heard about it, I was actually so gobsmacked by it, I actually found it hard to believe it was even really being proposed. So I got in contact with the council and did confirm that yes, indeed, they had proposed 20,000 square metres of synthetic turf to replace grass, which meant the birds didn't have their feeding ground and it wasn't going to be a very pleasant place for people to be. And there was a proposal to turn this reserve, which is a very much loved place. It was an open green space that was used for both sport and I'm very pro multi-use for open green spaces wherever possible. I don't like the idea that we fence in effectively community parks, community reserve, open green spaces and privatise these places to the highest bidder. I'm very against that. But the fact that they were going to smother this beautiful piece of reserve right next to the Gardiners Creek Trail in synthetic turf was just unbelievable to me. So I rang Boroondara that day and said, you don't know me, but you're about to get to know me because I'm going to cause the biggest protest you've ever seen in Boroondara. And I think myself and the community gave it a pretty good shot. we were successful in overturning this ridiculous proposal for synthetic turf, which was, at that location, was ridiculous. It would have created a huge amount of wastage every 5 years, ripping it up, replacing it. I mean, I to this day know more about synthetic turf than I hope to have ever had to have learned about it. I could tell you that, for example, over a 10-year period, 20,000 square metres of synthetic turf creates 110 tonnes of carbon emissions. So the questions that I've been given about long-term projections for council, I'm quite happy to take a bow to the people that worked in my group who are incredible people with PhDs. I mean, we involve people like, I don't know if you're familiar with Ian Hundley and people like that. We had the most incredible community effort. We connected far and wide throughout Boroondara. Everybody got behind it and we had a win there. So we stopped Dorothy Labour from being covered in synthetic turf. In regards to governance and transparency, I'm a big supporter to lift what some people have joked is the Hundley rule. I'm a very big supporter of removing any restriction on transparency and public questions. My experience of dealing with the Dorothy Labour Reserve campaign was one of, I'll be honest, it was the people involved at the time who are no longer officers, certainly in that department. As a public in fear of losing our park and trying to protect the environment, you know, collaborating with Friends of Gardiner Creek Valley, and we all came together. It was nothing short of really duplicitous. It was very, very hard to get straight answers. It was very, very frightening to be a person fighting. I think I saw maybe Olive Archibald sitting here. Olive is one of the first people that put $20 in an envelope and said, here's what I can do to help. That was what that did to our community. I have to say I was very disappointed with various political parties who I expected to get behind us who didn't at the time because they were in a state election. I think it was a bit too difficult. I heard that we can't help you because it's council property. I view open green spaces as public property, actually. I don't think the council, you know, they're the beholders of these places, but it's up to them to protect. Sorry, time's up.
No, you got 1 minute.
1 minute.
Oh, so I'm all for transparency. I'm an accidental environmentalist, I would say, who now when I walk down at Dorothy Labour Reserve, I am so happy during COVID that we've got that space. I'm passionate about mental health. It's intrinsically linked to these spaces. The overdevelopment that we're going through, we need these places as offsets for people to escape to. And I'm sorry, I probably haven't covered a lot of what I was trying to cover. But the scientific side of it, I've got people with PhDs around me that fought Dorothy Labour with me who are much more educated than I am and all of this stuff. But I'm very open to learning, and I'm just a huge supporter of environment. Hopefully my background with fighting for Dorothy Labour puts a little bit of credit in the bank for me. And I love Gardiner's Creek, love the place.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. Very good. Right on time as well. So, sorry. So, okay, next up is Victor Franco. Over to you, Victor.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'll just quickly introduce myself and then tell you a bit about my views. Well, I've moved to Camberwell after living interstate for a number of years, and a few years ago, and I've been very active in the local community. Just a little bit about myself. I volunteer with local sports clubs, the Glen Iris Gladiators Football Club, Camberwell Malvern Athletics. I'm a member of the Camberwell Historical Society, and I've researched and written on the history of open space in Camberwell and presented on that. I lead the Futures Committee at Camberwell Primary School, and this year secured additional open space from the state government for the kids, and got agreement from council for additional road safety improvements for those walking and cycling in the vicinity of the school from council. And believe me, that was an incredible battle, and they didn't go as far as they could or should have. And I also started the campaign to restore historic parkland in Camberwell Junction. That was established in 1869 as Parkland for Camberwell, and which council in 2010 turned into a commuter car park for their staff, taking green open space off hundreds of kids. That still continues. My background, I'm not an accidental environmentalist, far from it. I've got a long background in involvement in environmental initiatives. In the mid-90s, I worked in Canberra in sustainable development for the federal government and in science policy. I was in the science policy unit, and I also was part of a small team that developed the Greenhouse Challenge program, which was launched by the Keating government, and it was the government's primary greenhouse gas emission reduction program for industry. It's pretty toothless, but it ran until 2009 and had about 700 companies that signed up. Pretty toothless by the standards we'd advocate today, but I can tell you a lot of the companies who signed up for voluntary emissions reductions were doing a lot more than Boroondara Council is doing now. And that's going back to the mid-90s. And the initiatives were a wide range of measures from, fuel switching, energy savings, innovative technologies, etc. It was all a voluntary scheme. So probably not the sort of scheme that we look for federal government to implement these days. In local government, and this will give you a bit of a flavour for where I'm coming from, I've had a fairly extensive career. In Sydney, I was Chief of Staff to the former Lord Mayor Lucy Turnbull, and I was also the Director of Services. I was the Director of Transport and Major Projects, and in Brisbane, I was the Head of the Transport and Traffic Department. So I know a little bit about what councils can achieve. I know they can achieve a lot more. This council is not doing anywhere near what it should be doing. And it's, in fact, my despair at the lack of action by this council is a key motivating factor in me standing for election. I'll give you some examples of some of the things that I've delivered. I led and the development and implementation in 2007 of the City of Sydney Cycling Plan. That involved rolling out safe, separated cycleways on road, physically separated. And in fact, if anybody, I wish I was better at technology, I could put up some pictures of what that looked like, that actually addressed the safety issues, enabled kids, families to ride on road, not with dangerous little logos where you get sideswiped by cars. And that was incredibly difficult. If anybody wants, I can talk about the history of how that was implemented and the challenge. I actually got death threats from people in the community and presented, but that got through, and it's still being rolled out. I implemented City Cycle in Brisbane, the public bicycle hire scheme. I introduced Brisbane's first rapid transit system from New Farm to West End, if you know Brisbane. I developed the first City of Sydney car share policy and launched that, which introduced car share into the Sydney CBD and inner city suburbs. I developed the first City of Sydney Disability Action Plan. I just throw that out and lodged that with Heriock. That was back in 2002. I led the development and implementation of that. I increased the street tree planting program, developed the street tree master plan and significant trees register for Sydney. And one that I'm very proud of, which I did with Lucy Turnbull when she was Lord Mayor, we opened up the Glebe foreshore with cycling and walking tracks, and that's a fascinating study. And that was done with residents. In fact, it's probably worth just a minute. The council boundaries had changed, and the local resident group in Glebe, I don't know if anybody knows Sydney and the Glebe foreshore, so the Glebe Society, very nice resident action group, I should say. They invite you in a glass of wine and mostly academics. But anyway, so they called me up one day and said, look, we'd love to open up the Glebe foreshore. Council hasn't listened to us for 20 years and it had come into the City of Sydney. I went over, they explained the proposal, I thought it was fantastic. I went back to
Victor, yeah, I'm going to have to
run out of time
up there.
Yeah.
Your 5 minutes has skated by. So
Okay.
Did you hear my bell?
No, I didn't.
No. Okay.
I can keep going. I haven't even got to what I wanted to do.
Just out of
believe me, it keeps going.
Out of fairness to everyone, I just sorry I did need to stick to the rules. Okay, so not a lot of questions in the chat. There's a couple, but I encourage people. We've got I think another 25 minutes, so we've got a chance to get to some questions and let each of the candidates answer the question, which which you know, might be. I don't want to plant ideas, but is there anything that's driving you nuts about council? Is there anything change you want to see? It could be, you know, it could be bike paths, it could be parks, it could be not related to climate. It could definitely be, you know, how's FOGO working? Does it need improvement? Those sorts of things. So, is there anything that you in the audience would like to see? The other thing, you know, is homelessness an issue? Housing efficiency, you know, low socioeconomic housing. What are the sorts of things that that we need our new councillors to be doing? So whack them in the chat. I'm going to ask the first question while people are having a chance.
Can't send this one. I tried it before and thing. That little box that came up there.
Sorry, Oliver, you've gone off for some reason.
My problem is I can't get the chat to work, so maybe I can put my hand up later.
You can't get the chat to work.
Yes.
Yeah, well.
It wipes the whole screen when I try and send it.
Oh, what happens is, for people that don't know, when you type it in the chat and you hit enter or the space bar, it goes, I think when you hit enter, it goes straight in. So that's a trap for young players. So you sort of type your chat, don't worry too much about the spelling.
Done that.
You done hit enter and it should go in.
But I can't find enter because when I go down.
I'll enter on your keyboard.
On your keyboard.
Oh, okay. Oh, well,
I'm going to whack you back onto mute though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And Mick, there's a couple of questions in there now.
You want to ask one then?
Yeah, I'll do the first one is, sorry, I'll just have a look. I'll try to do some that we haven't got. So from Carl, what specific initiatives could be done for climate change by the council as immediate and ongoing measures?
So give everyone gets 2 minutes the three candidates get 2 minutes to answer that. And, you know, if you want to jump in, there's no particular order. Everyone will get a chance. So does anyone want to lead off?
Okay, I'll start. First and foremost, I think council should undertake a baseline study of both council and community emissions as a matter of urgency. Develop from that a comprehensive climate plan with defined targets, ambitious targets. I would say 2040 for community emissions and 2025 for council emissions. Include defined actions backed up by appropriate expenditure. I think the budget is misaligned. I think it needs to be redirected towards environmental measures. And then we can define those actions which are most effective. I mean, they could include things like public charging for electric vehicles, subsidies for electric vehicle charging in homes for people who need subsidies, mandatory requirements in multi-unit dwellings for electric charging points, obviously cycling facilities, active transport measures that encourage pedestrianisation, increased street tree plantings. I think FOGO's been excellent. It's the initiative that I praise council most on repeatedly. The green waste is again a good one. We need to look at all of council's actions. And here's a really important one. I think council should commit in all its new construction programs to actually achieve net zero emissions in all its new buildings. I mean, council is a major developer. It's not only about retrofitting the past, but looking to the future. And there is nothing going on. And I'd also welcome the opportunity to talk about council's organisation structure and how that's failing to deliver any results. And I could go on about that too. But I don't know if have I got 30 seconds?
Got 20 seconds, Victor.
Okay. Well, look, best practice needs to be showcased, integrating zero emissions. Currently, have a look as an example, Kew Recreation Centre, $65 million project. And if you search anything on environmental measures, there is one reference to the public, and it says on social and environmental responsibility, there are no known environmental impacts. That's it. That's the sum total of what they're reporting to the public. That can't go on. This is just absurd. And that's not just one.
Thank you, Victor. I am going to wind you up there, though. Thank you. Simon or Catherine?
Yeah, sure. Hi. Catherine, would you? Or?
You go. No, you go, Simon. I'm reading some of the questions. I'm reading Elizabeth's questions. That's all right. You go.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, I certainly concur with a number of the statements that have been made tonight. And in terms of short-term, I think the question was around short-term processes and I guess improvements. Then certainly things like any buildings that are being constructed should, where possible, have solar panels and generate as much electricity and be almost self-sufficient in that regard as possible. I think the other thing that would be really important is for councillors to become more educated. I would expect that if you asked 12 councillors what to do, you would probably get 12 different answers. And council would achieve a lot more if it can all be singing from the same hymn book. So I think it would be awesome if all the councillors could somehow, with the assistance of the council officers, learn about what are the best practices that councils are achieving in Australia, and look at those and say, okay, of those, what are the best grabs in the short term, the medium term and the longer term? So some of these things can be perhaps implemented fairly quickly. Others are going to need a bit more timing and then obviously a budget allocation to go around that.
Thank you, Simon. I haven't cut you off, have I?
No, that's it.
Wonderful, thank you. Catherine, over to you.
Hi, thank you. I've got some questions here that are so close to my heart. I could just, if you gave me 6 hours, I could just go on about all this stuff, open spaces and Gardner's Creek and everything. So I'm looking at, so Elizabeth Love has asked, I'm just trying to go back, so there's a few responses. Hawthorne Historical Society have asked about...
And I think we're asking you to answer the question that...
Right, okay, there's questions, so I'm finding it hard to follow.
What was the question again, Dianne?
It was about, immediate actions that council could
take. I'm not used to this Zoom, so I'm getting a little bit, I'm trying to get used to this. I'm looking, I can't see your face right now. I've got questions, but as people ask things, it's flicking the screen down.
So Catherine, it's about specific initiatives that could be done for climate change by the council.
Okay.
Ongoing.
So look, I don't ever like to make a statement unless I feel completely informed. I certainly will never commit to something unless I feel I've got a really good grasp of it. I am very interested to see, I mean, I come from a very practical point of view in that I felt that the damage to the environment and, you know, what was being done down at Dorothy Labour Reserve, I hate to bang on about that. I think I'll be talking about Dorothy Labour Reserve to the day that I die. The damage to the environment down there, so I look on a very practical level, even little things like that. I have to say I was very confused at the time when we had a real issue, and I'm going to be very honest, the big issues are very important, but I would like to say that in real terms, what happened to us down at Dorothy Labour Reserve, that was a very real, very immediate impact that I felt very strongly had an impact on climate change. I felt that that amount of synthetic turf, those carbon emissions from that, was something that I thought a lot of people would have gotten behind, and yet it fell on deaf ears with a lot of groups and a lot of people. I have to say I did actually reach out to Carolyn, did write back to me at the time, and I tried to get Lighter Footprints involved at the time when it happened. But I tend to think I'm very interested to see what happens with my understanding is that the climate action is currently in a consultative process at Boroondara, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to watch that very, very closely. I don't want to make any judgments on that without giving them the actual chance to do proper consultation. And I would like to see proper consultation. I'm somebody that believes that, you know, when they say they've had community consultation, I believe that we should be doing literal things like letterbox dropping people literally to every house or letting them know door knocking and speaking to them in that sort of engagement. I think the FOGO bin has been received really well. I think that's been great. Solar would be great. But I think actually, from a very real point of view, a lot of us here in Boroondara are living in very old houses. And a lot of these
Sorry, Catherine, I'm going to
that's all right.
wind you up there. It's your 2 minutes. Thank you. Just so we, we'll keep the 2 minutes to each of the candidates on the questions. The next question I'm going to ask is one from Tam. And Tam asks, I would like to see how our council can work with funding bodies to assist low-income house occupiers to borrow money for retrofit and efficient appliances. So in other words, can council help low-income residents or people, occupiers or even apartments or flats? Can council assist somehow to let people borrow money to make their housing energy efficient or energy efficient appliances? Does somebody want to have a crack at that?
Okay. I think it's a great idea, Tam. I mean, look, the Darebin example was more targeted to ratepayers with a rates offset, but with low-income people, they may not own their own place. If they're in social housing or in public housing, you need different systems. So, I mean, one approach is obviously, and the other thing to note about people in lower income housing, they often have higher energy bills, etc. So all compounds upon them as well, the financial impacts and the environmental impacts. I think council can look at it. I don't have a definitive scheme, but I do think that it's absolutely something that needs to be looked at. There are now some new schemes and people who've been developing innovative schemes for people in multi-storey dwellings so that you can put solar panels on the roofs and actually distribute the energy. There's arrangements, contemporary arrangements, so that you can actually distribute the energy in a fair and responsible manner. I don't know a lot about them. I know they exist, but I know that there's something council needs to look at. And again, council can subsidise, and council can also make approaches to relevant public bodies that oversee public housing and advocate for that and work collectively. So there are plenty of opportunities, and they're the sorts of things we need to be looking at and thinking innovatively around.
Thank you, Victor. Does somebody, Catherine or Simon, do you want to?
I'll have a little try. I'll have a little try, but look again. I've got a lot that I'd love to know about this. I could probably learn more from everybody sitting here than I could contribute. So we have a lot of. I feel very strongly about where I went to school as a kid. We had a lot of the low socioeconomic housing. A lot of back then we used to call it commission housing. It's not in Gardiner Ward. I'm actually talking more further down in Solway Ward, but there is Markham Reserve. So I do think that the comment that when you're poor in every way, I think it's very real. So when you've got, you're living, the people on low income in these areas, they are living in houses that are often very unsustainable. And the idea that to try and change their houses to be more, more energy efficient, how we help them, that is, I actually would support that fully. If there were ways that we could actually, I don't know if it would be, solar panels or just, helping them in any way possible, I would be behind that. In real terms of how to do it, I'm not sure. I'd like to know more about the places like Markham Reserve and how they've set those, but that's a state government initiative. But yeah, that's all I can really contribute to that. But I do know for low socioeconomic, they're poor in every way. So it is very tough. And the cost of living now, and not just the poor, actually pensioners as well. We've got a lot of pensioners in the area. I know people who are in their 80s and they're running one heater through winter and getting $600 and $700 gas bills. I mean, the cost of living is just completely unaffordable. So I would welcome any discussion with people that are equipped to try and figure this out for them, because the cost of living is spiralling and they are really hurting out there, people. I think, and people want to do better. People actually want to be, they want to help the environment. They want to be more sustainable. But for a lot of people, I mean, if I'm using the analogy of organic food, but a lot of this is a luxury to a lot of people. The idea that you could spend a fortune on solar panels is just completely unaffordable to a lot of people. So I think there's people that would like to do more, but
I wind you up there, Catherine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
Simon, I think we're on to you.
Great, thank you. So look, for sure, there are many opportunities to assist low income households and people in our community and in our LGA. And my wife is a speech pathologist, and she's worked extensively in lower socioeconomic areas in the schools. And the key thing to make these projects work is for it to be affordable. So the minute that you increase the bill to the person that's receiving the benefit, then it won't work. So it's all good and well, for instance, to say you borrowed $200 to buy this heater, which is going to cost you less to run, and over 12 months you'll be better off. But a lot of people in these positions are in these positions because they don't have money and they can't get money, and they don't have great credit ratings. And if they take that $20 or $40, $60 or $100, whatever it is, out of their pockets for that week to buy that particular item, then it's taking it away from something else. And we can't afford to do that. It could be their kids' lunch. So the key thing is, whatever is devised, it must be at no more cost than what they're spending now. And then at the end of it, they get this better heater. So the program's got to self-fund, if you know what I mean.
Great. Thank you, Simon. Wonderful. I'm going to, Diana, you right with the next one?
Yeah, I thought we might pick up on a different area. I'll combine two questions, which is, what do you think council could do to support COVID recovery and job creation?
I'll speak if you want me to.
Catherine, the floor is yours.
I feel very passionately that we should have had a COVID. I mean, if you need legal advice and you're not a lawyer, you go to a lawyer to interpret the law for you. I feel very, very strongly that when all of this happened, and look, I have to say, I think I was very, very critical of Boroondara 2 years ago. If you Google my name, I've been a loud critic of council. I have to say, I think they do good work at Boroondara. There are good things that they do too, but I have to say, I'm very passionate about small business, low income, mental health, all of that stuff. I can't understand why. The first thing I think they should have done is they should have set up a COVID, almost like a SWAT team of COVID support people that, for example, might have been knocking on doors for small traders, going into coffee shops whose turnover has dropped. I'm talking to traders who are down 70%. They have not had a call from anybody at council. They're interpreting the rules, which are often the goalposts are changing, and they've been trying to keep their businesses going. Some of these people are living in the shop. Some of these people have sunk their entire life savings into these businesses. They're trying to keep going. So I do think that there should be a group that's been set up, and something that I'd like to see them do, where they can cut red tape, expedite processes. If you're somebody that is going under, don't take 6 weeks to get permits, and don't muck around with this. These people's livelihoods are on the edge, and they need help. Everything from maybe, I actually copped a parking ticket the other night because I was 3 minutes over standing outside my butcher's shop. There were no cars on the road. We're in COVID. Everybody's struggling to keep going. So, yep. They should have had a team set up to support.
Thank you, Catherine. Sorry, that was Maybe a bit loud, was it?
Okay. Council,
over to you.
Council has not included any COVID allowance in the forthcoming budget, 0, and I think that's a mistake. I also think there are major big ticket items that are going to crowd out investment and possibility of using funds for other things, namely the $129 million IT project, which is very questionable, and the $65 million Kew Aquatic Centre, which has all sorts of issues associated with it. They're big ticket expenditure items which preclude us from doing other things that are more important. And we could immediately look at outdoor dining. Outdoor dining, you know, councils usually charge traders and business people for all that. We could waive all those fees, promote an outdoor dining culture, help in creative areas like that. I mean, it's outside Gardiner, you know, Glenferrie Road, but also around the junction, around Taronga Village. There's probably less scope, but starting to look at how we can create a vibrant pedestrian culture within our community, and really ramp that up and subsidise it all to start off. Separately, I mean, have a look at where during COVID our community has congregated. It's in the green corridors. The green corridors, we've got them underutilised. There are gaps, and it's not just the green corridor that goes through our ward, but it's the interconnection across the greater municipality as it goes out. There are gaps in the, you know, signage for vegetation is, you know, we need greater vegetation. We need expansion to some of those. At all the crossing points where we meet with local roads, we block pedestrian priority and cycling priority. Let's rebalance. If we get locked up again next year, why not invest primarily in those green corridors? And really, they're the jewel. I mean, when I moved to Boroondara, you know, I go out with my kids and my partner, and we cycle, we walk. That's where people are gravitating to. It's congested. Let's really make them the jewel in the crown. Fix up all the gaps, all of it, connected beautifully, you know, and have this wonderful public facility out there, rather than squandering on some of the absurd budgetary expenditure items that this council has as priorities. Sorry, and that's COVID, because if we get locked up, if people, apartments are going up.
I'm going to wind you up there, Victor.
So,
thank you. Simon, you haven't spoken to this, have you?
No, that's right. Yeah, look,
Over to you.
my response is a mix of both of those candidates' ideas. I think there's some really good things there. I totally agree with the reviewing of projects that are not urgent, and then reprioritise that money into things like mental health. 41%, according to Social Suite, of youths are lonely. I'm sure that applies in Boroondara as well as anywhere else. They're all on their iPads at the moment, not out playing sport, and not at school, of course. Hopefully some of these things will rectify and that number will go down. But I think we could have perhaps a 1-800 mental health line for people that need that support from council. So I also agree with the loosening and getting rid of the red tape and the loosening of the planning laws and bylaws to allow restaurants, businesses and so forth to expand into parks, for instance. Maybe corners of parks can be used on a Saturday evening where they can set up some al fresco dining. It's a bit of a field of dreams, build it and they'll come, and people will soon learn about it by word of mouth or advertising, and they can have like a mini restaurant in a park, particularly as the weather gets warmer, and then you can have that sort of outdoor activity occurring where it may be kind of difficult to do if your cafe or restaurant is High Street Ashburton. So I think the other thing that would be great would be to turn off the council parking meters for 12 months or 2 years, and so that the limits would still apply. So you could still only park for 1 hour if that's what the green sign says, but you don't have to pay. So the resident goes knowing that they don't have to find their coin or their credit card to park, and the retailers benefit because more people will be out taking advantage of that. And I think the last thing I had is that I'm calling for a rate freeze. So allowing residents and businesses to get back on their feet. And if you can afford the extra rates, fine, go spend it with your local business and have some sort of campaign around that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Simon. Okay. Right. We've got, I think, 8 minutes till we get to 9 o'clock. So the timing wise, that's the end of the questions. I'm going to give each of the candidates that are here tonight an opportunity to just have a final statement in a moment, but just before we do that, I've put into the chat 2 websites. The first one is the Victorian Electoral Commission website. If you wanted to click on that in case, or just take a photo of it or whatever, in case you want to go and look at candidates later on, see who else is running, or look at the bios of people you've heard here tonight. Certainly encourage you to look at the bios of the people that are here tonight. They've really, you know, put themselves out tonight, so that'd be really appreciated. The second thing that I've put in there is the Lighter Footprints website with events. The next month, so we have a event every month. So for those who haven't been to our events, not every month, but pretty much every month. And we have an events page, and then we have a blog after the event. So if you go to lighterfootprints.org events, you'll see our next one is about the fight for our forests, with 3 really key people. So important. We'd love to have you show up for that. That'll be a Zoom event as well. Now I'm going to go back to the candidates for their final statement. Happy to do it in any order.
All right. Firstly, I think council has never built up, it's wrong to say eroded, but never built up a capacity to respond seriously on environmental issues. If any of you have a background in organisational management or the like, have a look at the org chart for this council. You'll see that responsibility for sustainable development sits with the parks manager. The parks manager is responsible for parks and probably street tree maintenance and the like. There is no high level. The org chart is, the org structure is built around delivering an IT project. That's where all the high level focus is. That's where the senior management, it's structured around that, this customer service first $129 million project. It's not around that. If we don't vote for councillors across all the wards, it's not just here, it's across the organisation, we won't get anyone who will direct the CEO to create that organisational capacity to actually respond. I do think we then need to get, get the baseline studies done, get the climate action plan done, get the budget built around it, get the clear defined actions, create an advisory committee with councillors. If I get elected, I will be at every meeting of that advisory committee. I'll push for it, and with external representatives. And that committee can oversee and have reported to it in a public forum as well, publicly available, but those people, the actions and the measures and progress on how council is implementing. It's urgent. It has to happen. This council, and there are many councillors out there across other wards, have a look at some, they've refused to even attend this meeting. They're seriously, they are climate deniers. It's real, it's palpable, and they could get elected and nothing will happen. Help those candidates who are serious and make it happen. And we can make it happen. There's tremendous scope and opportunity.
Thank you, Victor. Catherine or Simon, your last final wrap. You want me to nominate? Simon, you're away.
Well, yeah, no worries. All right, thank you. So, look, thanks everybody for the opportunity to be part of this tonight. It's very much appreciated. I'm just going to keep it really simple. I think that there's an opportunity and a need for significant and meaningful change in terms of reducing the carbon footprint, and council's got a very important role to play in that. And it's totally the responsibility of councillors to be part of and insistent on driving that change.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, so back and over to you, Catherine.
That was nice and succinct, Simon. I wish I could be that succinct. I will finish up by saying the most exciting thing to me about in the spirit of sportsmanship here, Obviously, I'm hoping to win, but may the best person win, or whatever, however you want to put it. But it's a great lot of fun anyway to run as a candidate, because you learn so much, and it's just a continuation of the experience I've already had getting involved in council and community matters a couple of years ago. To me, this is a continuation of what I found myself involved in with Dorothy Labour Reserve, and then getting to know Friends of Gardiner Creek, and that's all been rolling along, and heritage. I'm very interested in heritage as well. What I'm most excited about with these elections, 2 years ago, my fellow colleagues on the campaign and the residents all said, 2 years' time, everybody, 2 years' time. We have a chance to change this in 2 years' time. And I was speaking to other people that are probably known to all of you here in other wards, saying we have a chance to change in 2 years' time. So I'm really excited about this, because I think this is a think tank. I'm really excited about this think tank of brains and passion, and we all come from different places. And the one thing I want to say is that, having been an active critic of the council in the past, the one thing that I think is really important is, yes, we can be critical of council, but I do think a couple of things are important to remember. My experience of dealing with council was, we gave the councillors a really hard time when we fought to save DLR, but I now realise too that a lot of it goes into the deep bowels of council, and a lot of it goes into offices and the way things are proposed, and a lack of collaboration and transparency, you know, working with the public. I'm excited about the think tank of all of us here, but I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm excited about, over the next few years, looking at green spaces, which I know will be important, and collaboration with everybody.
Thank you, Catherine. Look, wonderful. We're just about on time, everyone. So I really want to thank Simon and Catherine and Victor for joining us tonight. So well done. Full marks to you guys. 3 really good candidates, and thank you very much on behalf of everyone. Secondly, I'd like to thank all of you out there, all the participants. We've got, I think we started out at 33. We've still got 30 participants online, and there's probably, I can see a couple of couples there as well. So we've probably got more than that. We're probably 35, 36. Wonderful. And thanks for taking the time to join this session. I think we've done it face to face in the past. This is probably one topic or one forum where the Zoom has worked fantastically well. So thanks to you participants. And I'd like to thank Dianne Peck for joining me as well.
The bell didn't work.
So I think that's a wrap, as they say. Good luck to the candidates on the big day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep safe.
Thanks for hosting tonight, everyone, and thanks for being so nice to us.